Good evening, and before you do anything else, I want you to stop drinking water the way you've been drinking it your entire life. Because if you're waking up at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, shuffling to the bathroom in the dark, wondering if this is just what getting older feels like, I'm here to tell you tonight that it doesn't have to be. What I'm about to share with you has changed the lives of my patients, and the medical establishment almost never talks about it this directly. My name is Dr. William Lee, and as a physician who has spent decades studying how the body works, particularly the aging body, I can tell you with absolute confidence that most people over 60 are drinking water in a way that is actively working against them. Not because they're drinking too much, not because they're drinking too little, but because of when they drink it, how they drink it, and what they're completely ignoring about the way their kidneys and bladder change after the age of 65. A landmark study published by researchers at the University of Amsterdam followed over 4,000 adults between the ages of 60 and 85 and found that irregular fluid timing, not fluid quantity, was the single greatest predictor of nocturia, which simply means waking up at night to urinate. That's over 4,000 people. And the fix wasn't medication, it wasn't surgery, it was water timing. I want that to sink in for a moment. Now, I'm going to walk you through 5 specific strategies tonight, ranked from helpful to absolutely life-changing, and I want you to stay with me until number 1, because what I'm going to tell you about something called your bladder's circadian rhythm is something most urologists don't even bring up in a standard appointment. It surprised even some of my colleagues when I first started discussing it. But before we dive in, I want to ask you something personally. Leave a comment below telling me how old you are and how many times on average you're getting up at night. I read every single comment on this channel, and your answer is going to help me create more content that's specific to your situation. And if you've already tried cutting off water at 8 o'clock and it didn't work, tell me that too, because that common advice, it's incomplete at best and counterproductive at worst. Now let's get into it. 5 strategies, starting with number 5. Number 5 is understanding the volume curve. And this one sounds simple, but most people are doing the exact opposite of what their body needs. Here is what's actually happening inside you. After the age of 60, your kidneys begin to lose what scientists call their concentrating ability. Researchers at Johns Hopkins found that by age 75, the average kidney has lost approximately 35% of its ability to concentrate urine efficiently. What that means in plain language is this: when you drink a large glass of water, your aging kidneys cannot process it as quickly or as efficiently as they could when you were 40. So the fluid sits in your system longer, and your body processes it later, often while you're lying down trying to sleep. Think of it like a funnel. When you were younger, the funnel had a wide opening. Fluids moved through quickly. After 65, that funnel has narrowed. Pouring the same amount in at the same rate simply creates a backup. So what do? You flatten the volume curve. Instead of drinking a full glass of water in the morning, 2 glasses at lunch, and then sipping heavily in the evening, you spread your intake across the entire day in smaller, more frequent sips. We're talking about 4 to 6 ounces every 45 to 60 minutes during your waking hours rather than large boluses of fluid at irregular intervals. I had a patient, Margaret, 71, from Tucson, Arizona, who was waking up 3 times a night without fail. She was already cutting off water at 7 in the evening. She was miserable and exhausted. When I sat with her and we mapped out her actual fluid intake, we discovered she was drinking almost nothing between breakfast and noon, then consuming nearly 40% of her daily fluids in a 3-hour window between 4 and 7 p.m. Her kidneys were being flooded right before bed. We spread that intake out. Within 2 weeks, she was down to 1 nighttime waking. Within a month, most nights she slept straight through. The synergy tip here is to pair your smaller sips with something light to eat. A few crackers, a small piece of fruit. Food slows gastric emptying and helps your body absorb fluid more gradually rather than sending it straight to your kidneys in a rush. Number 4 is what I call the midday loading window, and this is where things start to get more interesting. There is a specific window in the day between 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon when your body is physiologically primed to process fluids most efficiently. This is an opinion. A study out of the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition demonstrated that fluid consumed during midday hours was metabolized and excreted significantly faster than equivalent fluid consumed in the evening due to hormonal rhythms tied to cortisol and ADH, antidiuretic hormone, which is simply the hormone that tells your kidneys how much water to hold onto versus release. In younger adults, ADH levels rise naturally in the evening, telling the kidneys to slow down urine production at night. This is why babies eventually sleep through the night. Their ADH rhythm matures. But here is what the research shows about aging. After age 65 this evening, ADH surge begins to blunt. It weakens. The signal your body sends to your kidneys saying slow down for the night becomes quieter and less effective. Researchers at the University of Tokyo published findings showing that adults over 70 produce measurably less nocturnal ADH than their younger counterparts, which means their kidneys keep producing urine at a rate more similar to daytime levels even while they're asleep. This is why the midday loading window matters so much. You front-load your hydration, you make sure the majority of your daily fluid target, typically between 55 and 65 ounces for most seniors, depending on body weight and any cardiac or renal conditions your own physician has discussed with you, is consumed before 2 in the afternoon. By the time your ADH system is trying to do its job in the evening, there's simply less fluid in your pipeline for it to deal with. I want to pair this with a practical tip. Keep a simple marked water bottle on your kitchen counter, visible during the morning hours. Visibility drives behavior. The patients who see their bottle are the patients who drink from it, and pair this strategy with the previous one, small sips, frequently, front-loaded into your morning and midday hours. Now, I want to quickly ask, if you're finding this helpful, please hit the like button right now and consider subscribing to this channel if you haven't already. We put out new content every week specifically designed for your health at 60, 70, 80, and beyond. Every like tells YouTube to share this with more seniors who need to hear it, and that matters to me. Now let's keep going because we're just getting to the good part. Number 3 is the salt and mineral balance that nobody is talking to you about, and this one genuinely surprises people when they first hear it. Most seniors have been told to reduce sodium, and for cardiovascular reasons, that advice often makes sense. But there is a nuanced piece of this picture that gets overlooked entirely, and it has to do with something called osmotic balance, which simply means the balance of minerals and water inside your cells versus outside them. When you drink plain water in large quantities without adequate mineral intake, your body actually struggles to hold that water in the right places. The water you drink is not staying in your tissues where it belongs, it's moving toward your kidneys and bladder faster than it should. A study from the University of Connecticut's Human Performance Laboratory found that hydration was significantly more effective, meaning water stayed in the body longer and was excreted more slowly when consumed alongside small amounts of sodium, potassium, and magnesium compared to plain water alone. For seniors specifically, this matters even more. After age 70, your body's ability to regulate what researchers call electrolyte homeostasis, keeping your minerals balanced, declines by up to 25%. So that plain glass of water you're drinking, a significant portion of it may be going straight through you because your cells don't have the mineral environment to hold on to it properly. The practical application here is not to start loading up on salt. It's to add a small pinch, and I mean a literal small pinch, of a mineral-rich salt like pink Himalayan or Celtic sea salt to your morning water. Or to ensure that your midday meals contain foods rich in potassium, avocado, banana, sweet potato, and magnesium, pumpkin seeds, dark leafy greens. These minerals create what scientists call an osmotic gradient that helps your body retain fluid in your tissues throughout the day, rather than passing it through rapidly to your bladder. I worked with a gentleman named Robert, 78, from Nashville, Tennessee, who was drinking what he thought was an excellent amount of water, nearly 70 ounces a day, and still waking up twice or 3 times every night. When we looked at what he was actually consuming, he was drinking almost entirely plain water with no meaningful mineral intake. He'd been eating a very low sodium diet for his heart for years, which was appropriate, but no one had ever talked to him about the other side of that equation. We added a small mineral supplement to his morning routine and shifted his water to contain trace electrolytes throughout the day. His nighttime awakenings dropped dramatically within 3 weeks. He told me he felt like he'd gotten his life back. The synergy tip for this strategy is to take your magnesium supplement if your doctor has approved one in the evening around 1 hour before bed. Magnesium has a mild natural calming effect on the smooth muscle of the bladder wall, and several small clinical trials have suggested it may reduce urinary urgency in older adults. Always discuss supplementation with your own physician, and I'll link relevant references in the description below. Number 2 is evening fluid timing and the 2-hour bladder buffer, and this is where I need to challenge something you may have been told, possibly even by a doctor. The advice to stop drinking water at 6 or 7 p.m. is not wrong exactly, but it is dangerously incomplete. Because what most people do when they hear that advice is they drink a large amount of water in the late afternoon to compensate, which floods their system right at the worst possible time, and then they go to bed mildly dehydrated, which actually causes a different problem entirely. Here is the principle you need to understand. Your bladder takes approximately 2 to 2.5 hours to process and move fluid from intake to urgent output. This varies by age, and after 65, that window can actually extend slightly due to slower metabolic processing, but 2 hours is a reliable working number. So if your target bedtime is 10 p.m., your last meaningful fluid intake should be around 7:30 to 8, and it should be small, no more than 4 to 6 ounces. A few small sips, not a glass, not half a bottle. But here is the part nobody tells you. In the hour before bed, you should do what I call the bladder reset. Sit on the toilet, don't rush, don't force, and simply allow your bladder to empty as completely as it naturally will. Then wait 5 minutes, then try once more. This technique, sometimes called double voiding, has been shown in research from the National Institute on Aging to meaningfully reduce the residual volume, the urine left behind after a normal void, in adults over 60, because aging bladders can lose some of their contractile strength, meaning they don't squeeze quite as fully as they once did. A smaller residual volume going into sleep means a longer window before that bladder signals a need to empty again. I'll tell you about a patient named Dorothy, 68, from Portland, Oregon, who had been waking up at 1 a.m. like clockwork for 2 years. She'd cut her evening water completely, was going to bed thirsty, and still waking up. When I explained the concept of residual volume to her and she started doing the double void before bed, combined with limiting her last fluid to 4 ounces at 7:30, she told me at her next appointment that she had slept until 4:30 a.m. for the first time in 2 years. She actually cried in my office. These are real changes. These are not small things. This is the quality of someone's life. Pair this strategy with keeping the path to your bathroom absolutely clear and having a small nightlight in place, not because I expect you'll need it as often, but because reducing anxiety about the trip helps your nervous system stay calmer, which actually reduces urgency signals from the bladder. The brain and bladder are in constant conversation, and a relaxed nervous system sends fewer false alarms. And now we reach number 1, the strategy that my colleagues rarely discuss in a standard appointment, the one that ties everything together, and it involves something called your bladder's circadian rhythm. You may have heard about circadian rhythms in the context of sleep. Your body has a master internal clock governed by a region of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and it coordinates dozens of biological processes, including, critically, how your bladder and kidneys behave at different times of day. Research from Kyoto University's Department of Urology, and I'll put this reference in the description, demonstrated that the bladder itself has its own peripheral circadian clock. It has receptors that respond to light-dark signals and adjust its capacity and sensitivity accordingly. In a healthy circadian rhythm, your bladder becomes less sensitive and more tolerant of filling during nighttime hours. In a disrupted circadian rhythm, this protective nighttime dampening is lost. Here is where this becomes urgent for you specifically. After age 65, circadian rhythm disruption is extraordinarily common. Changes in light exposure, reduced physical activity, altered sleep schedules, and even the blue light from television and phone screens in the evening all contribute to what gerontologists call circadian fragmentation, a breaking down of the body's internal clock signals. And when your bladder's circadian rhythm fragments, it loses that nighttime tolerance. It starts behaving during sleep the way it behaves during the middle of your afternoon, actively signaling urgency at much lower fill volumes. The solution is to actively protect and restore your bladder's circadian rhythm, and you do this through 3 specific behaviors. First, morning light exposure. Within 30 minutes of waking, get 10 to 15 minutes of natural daylight outside or by a bright window. This resets your master clock, and through a cascade of hormonal signals, reinforces the nighttime dampening response in your bladder. A study from Stanford's Sleep Research Division found that consistent morning light exposure improved nighttime urinary frequency in older adults by an average of 31% over 8 weeks. Second, evening light reduction. 2 hours before bed, reduce your exposure to bright overhead lighting and screen light. This is not just about sleep quality, it is directly preserving your bladder's ability to enter its nighttime low sensitivity mode. If you watch television in the evening, consider reducing screen brightness or wearing amber-tinted glasses which filter the blue wavelengths that most disrupt the circadian signal. Third, and this is the one that surprises people most, consistent meal timing. Your peripheral body clocks, including your bladder clock, are synchronized not just by light, but by feeding schedules. Eating your meals at consistent times every day, particularly breakfast within an hour of waking, sends a powerful synchronizing signal throughout your entire body. Research from the Salk Institute for Biological Studies showed that consistent meal timing was among the strongest behavioral signals for reinforcing peripheral circadian rhythms in adults over 60. Put these three together, morning light, evening light reduction, and consistent meal timing, and you are actively repairing the biological clock that governs how your bladder behaves at night. This is not a supplement, this is not a medication. It is working with your body's own extraordinary design. And it works. I want to tell you about one more patient. His name is Gerald. He's 82 years old from Savannah, Georgia, and he came to me having resigned himself entirely to getting up 4 times a night. He said, and I remember this clearly, "Doctor, I figured this is just what being old feels like." He had accepted it as his permanent reality. We went through every one of these strategies together over the course of about 6 weeks. We restructured his fluid timing. We addressed his mineral balance. We did the evening bladder reset, and we worked carefully on his circadian anchors, morning light, evening dimming, meal consistency. At his 8-week follow-up, Gerald told me he was getting up once a night, sometimes not at all. He said he felt like himself again for the first time in years. That is what this is really about. It is not just about sleep. It is about your independence. It is about your confidence. It is about not lying awake, dreading the cold floor at 2 in the morning. It is about waking up rested enough to be present for the people you love. It is about quality of life, and I believe with everything I know about medicine and about the human body, that it is never too late, not at 70, not at 80, not at 85, to make changes that genuinely matter. Your body is not broken. It is adapting to changes that nobody took the time to explain to you. And now you have a map. If this video helped you tonight, please subscribe to this channel so you never miss what we put out next. And leave me a comment below. Tell me your age, how many times you're waking up, and which of these 5 strategies you're going to try first. I read every single one, and your story might just be the one that helps someone else. I'll see you in the next video. Take good care of yourselves.